"Captain, we have an emergency in the cabin." The flight attendant's voice echoed through the intercom as I piloted through the darkness of the American night. In 20 years of aviation, I thought I'd seen it all, but nothing prepared me for what was happening in aisle 23F, a woman giving birth at 35,000 feet altitude, with a storm preventing us from landing. Sometimes the sky reserves surprises that transform routine into a miracle of life. It was exactly 11:47 p.m. when we took off from JFK bound for Miami. I remember the time precisely because I had checked my Breitling watch, a gift from my wife when I completed 15 years in commercial aviation, a routine 2-hour flight that I had flown hundreds of times before. The Boeing 737-800 was at near maximum capacity, 175 passengers, mostly business travelers returning from commitments in the Big Apple, some tourists eager to reach the Florida coast. Weather conditions in the briefing indicated some turbulence over the Carolinas, but nothing out of the ordinary for someone who regularly flies this route. The wind was calm at JFK, perfect visibility of over 10 miles, and Miami was reporting clear skies with winds of only 8 knots. It was the kind of night every pilot appreciates, ideal conditions for a smooth flight. I was in command alongside co-pilot Michael, an experienced 32-year-old pilot who had been flying with me for 3 years. He had over 4,500 flight hours and impressive technical competence. Always meticulous with checklists, Michael was the type of co-pilot every captain wants by their side. The cabin crew was led by Chief Flight Attendant Jennifer, a professional with over 15 years of experience in commercial aviation. Jennifer knew every emergency procedure like the back of her hand and had a natural ability to calm passengers in difficult situations. Completing the team were flight attendants Ashley and Amanda, both with over 5 years of experience. It was a team I trusted completely, tested in various situations over the years. We had faced severe turbulence over the Rockies together, an emergency landing in Denver due to hydraulic failure, and even a fire in the baggage compartment during a flight to Los Angeles. Everyone knew exactly their role, and our communication was almost telepathic after so much time working together. During the first 40 minutes of flight, everything went perfectly. The takeoff from runway 04L at JFK was smooth, with precise rotation at 155 knots and an initial climb without turbulence. We reached our cruise altitude of 35,000 feet in just 18 minutes, maintaining a constant speed of Mach 0.78. Passengers were relaxed, and many were already sleeping. The in-flight service had been completed without incident. Natural sandwiches, hot beverages, and the traditional American coffee that always pleased passengers. Through the windows, we could see the lights of American cities like small, bright points in the dark vastness. Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., each city a constellation of human dreams seen from our privileged perspective. It was a view that never failed to move me, even after 2 decades flying through American skies. Michael was monitoring the weather radar when he noticed storm formation ahead of us. "Captain, we have convective cells forming over the Carolinas region. Severe turbulence reported by other aircraft. Looks like it's intensifying rapidly," he informed me, adjusting navigation parameters on the flight management system. I observed the radar images. What had been just a few scattered small cells 30 minutes ago was now transforming into an organized line of storms. Colors on the display showed yellow and red cells, indicating intense precipitation and possible hail. It was the typical summer convective system on the East Coast, but with unusual intensity for that time of year. I requested air traffic control for a route change to circumvent the storm. Atlanta Center, commercial flight requesting deviation southeast due to convective cells on planned route. We estimate adding approximately 10 minutes to flight time. Commercial flight, cleared for southeast deviation. Maintain FL 350 and report when established on new route. The controller responded with the typical efficiency of American ATC. It was a standard maneuver that would add only 10 minutes to flight time. The controller immediately approved our request, and we began a gentle turn southeast, maintaining safe distance from the storm cells that were rapidly intensifying to our left. "Well-organized system," Michael commented, observing how the cells aligned in a well-defined front. "Good call to deviate now. In a bit, that's going to be impenetrable." It was exactly at that moment that everything changed. The sound of the intercom pulled me from concentration on the instruments. Jennifer's voice was different. There was controlled urgency that I rarely heard from her, even in the most complicated situations we had faced together. "Captain, I need to speak with you immediately. We have a serious medical situation in the cabin. It's different from anything we've faced before." I felt a chill down my spine. Jennifer wasn't the type to get easily rattled. In all the years working together, she always maintained Olympic calm, even when dealing with panicked passengers during severe turbulence or medical emergencies. If she was worried, it was because the situation was really serious. I activated the autopilot and turned to Michael. "Take control of the aircraft, monitor our deviation route, and maintain communication with control. Any changes in weather conditions, call me immediately." "Roger, Captain." "Aircraft under my control," Michael responded, adjusting his position in the seat and assuming visual control of all instruments. I unbuckled my seatbelt and walked to the cockpit door. Security protocol required me to knock and wait for confirmation before opening the door. Jennifer was waiting for me on the other side, her face pale under the soft cabin lighting. Her eyes, normally confident and serene, showed a concern that instantly alarmed me. "Captain, we have a passenger in seat 23F who has gone into labor," she said in a low voice, so as not to alarm other passengers. "She's 7 months pregnant, and contractions started 15 minutes ago. They're becoming increasingly intense and frequent. The passenger says she shouldn't give birth for another 2 weeks, but something is happening." I felt my stomach freeze and a sensation of vertigo that had nothing to do with altitude. In 2 decades of flying, I had dealt with various medical emergencies: heart attacks, seizures, fainting spells, diabetic crises, even acute appendicitis that forced us to divert to Miami. But never a premature birth. It was the type of situation every pilot fears, because it involves not just one life, but 2, and requires medical care that simply doesn't exist aboard a commercial aircraft. "Does the passenger have a name?" I asked, trying to humanize the situation and maintain my own calm. Sarah Williams. She was returning from New York where she had a medical follow-up. Everything was normal this morning, according to her. It's her first child. She's terrified but trying to be brave. "Is there a doctor on board?" I asked, already knowing this was our first and most important hope. Jennifer smiled for the first time since calling me. "Yes, we're lucky. Dr. Johnson, a pediatrician, identified himself and is attending the passenger right now." "But, Captain—" She paused, as if hesitating to continue. "He says it's a complex situation. The baby is in breech position, and Sarah is bleeding. It's not much yet, but he's concerned. He recommends emergency landing as soon as possible." The situation was rapidly complicating. Breech position meant the baby was coming buttocks first, a condition that can be dangerous even in a well-equipped hospital, much more so at 35,000 feet altitude with limited medical resources. I quickly returned to the cockpit, my mind already processing available options. Michael was communicating our position to control when I shared the situation. "Michael, we have a medical emergency. Premature birth in progress, complicated by breech position and hemorrhaging. I need the nearest airport with medical emergency capability." Michael didn't hesitate. His fingers flew over the console, checking our exact position and consulting navigation charts. "Captain, we're exactly over Richmond. Charlotte is 35 minutes flight time, 10,000-foot runway, 24-hour tower, and emergency medical services available." But then he looked at the weather radar, and his expression changed. "But, Captain—" Michael pointed to the display. The storm had intensified dramatically in the last few minutes. What had been isolated cells was now transformed into a well-organized supercell. Red and purple colors dominated the entire Charlotte region, indicating extremely intense precipitation, possible large hail, and wind gusts that could easily exceed 100 knots. "Captain, it's impossible to land in Charlotte now. The storm is right over the airport. Severe to extreme turbulence reported, confirmed wind shear and hail. It would be suicide to attempt an approach in those conditions." My experience told me Michael was absolutely right. Trying to land in that storm with a loaded aircraft would put 175 lives at extreme risk. But every minute that passed meant Sarah and her baby were getting further from the medical help they needed. I urgently requested information from air traffic control about alternative airports. Atlanta Center, declaring Pan Medical. We need alternative airport for emergency landing. Complicated premature birth in progress. The control response came quickly, but wasn't encouraging. Commercial flight. Aware of medical emergency. Jacksonville reporting zero visibility due to intense precipitation and 45-knot winds gusting to 70. Raleigh-Durham with wet runway and 35-knot crosswind. Smaller regional airports without adequate medical services for neonatal emergency. It was as if the sky itself was conspiring against us. All nearby options were compromised by the same weather system we had tried to avoid. At that moment, Jennifer returned to the cockpit, her concern even more visible. "Captain, the situation has worsened. The doctor confirmed that the baby is really in breech position. Sarah is being very brave, but contractions are coming every 3 minutes now. Dr. Johnson says that based on progression, the baby could be born at any moment. He managed to temporarily stabilize the hemorrhaging, but, Captain, he needs a neonatal ICU urgently. A 7-month baby born at altitude can have serious respiratory problems. It was the most difficult moment of my career. In all the emergency simulations I had done, in all the scenarios we studied in flight school, we never faced anything like this. I had 175 lives under my responsibility, including a mother and premature baby being born in extreme conditions. Landing in the storm would be too risky. An accident could result in an even greater tragedy, killing everyone on board. But continuing to fly meant the baby would be born completely without adequate medical assistance. Options swirled in my mind like a whirlwind. Each decision carried enormous risks. If I tried to land in Charlotte or Jacksonville, I could cause a fatal accident. If I continued flying, I might lose mother and baby due to lack of adequate medical care. "Jennifer," I said finally, my voice firmer than I felt, "I need you to organize the cabin for a possible emergency landing. Remove all loose objects, verify passengers have seatbelts fastened, and prepare emergency equipment. We're going to try Atlanta. It's 45 minutes flight time, but completely outside the storm area." "Captain," Michael intervened, quickly checking navigation data, "Atlanta has a 12,000-foot runway, 24-hour tower, and Grady Hospital has one of the best neonatal ICUs in the country. It's our best option." I communicated our intention to air traffic control, declaring full medical emergency. "Atlanta Center, commercial flight declaring medical emergency. Requesting direct clearance to Atlanta. Premature birth in progress with complications. We need neonatal ICU ambulance and medical team standing by on the ramp." The response was immediate and reassuring. "Commercial flight emergency copied. Direct clearance Atlanta. Maintain FL 350. Notifying emergency services. Neonatal ICU ambulance and medical team will be dispatched immediately. Priority granted." Immediately, I increased engine power to maximum economic speed, ignoring normal fuel economy protocols. Every minute saved could be crucial for Sarah and her baby. The Boeing responded promptly, accelerating smoothly through the American night. "Michael, calculate our exact time to Atlanta and confirm we have sufficient fuel for possible holding patterns if necessary." "Captain, at maximum speed, ETA Atlanta 02.15. More than sufficient fuel, including reserves for possible delays," Michael responded, always meticulous with calculations. As we flew at high speed through the night, Jennifer kept me informed about the cabin situation every 5 minutes. Dr. Johnson had managed to improvise a sterile area using blankets and towels from the in-flight service. With Jennifer and Ashley's help, he had created a kind of mini delivery room in the aisle near seat 23F. "Captain," Jennifer reported during one of her visits to the cockpit, "Dr. Johnson is incredible. He managed to transform that area into something resembling a medical environment. Other passengers with nursing experience offered to help. One is a retired obstetric nurse and another works in neonatal ICU. It's like destiny put the right people on this flight." "And Sarah? How is she dealing with all this?" "She's being incredibly brave, Captain. Following all medical instructions despite the pain and fear. She keeps asking if the baby will be okay, but she's trying to stay calm. Some passengers are praying for her. It's very moving, Captain." As Jennifer returned to the cabin, I reflected on how commercial aviation is more than just transporting people from one place to another. We're responsible for crucial moments in human lives: births, deaths, weddings, farewells, reunions. Each flight carries stories, dreams, and sometimes miracles like what was happening in our cabin. 20 minutes after declaring emergency, Jennifer returned with an expression mixing concern and admiration. "Captain, Dr. Johnson says labor is progressing very rapidly now. Contractions are coming every 2 minutes and he can see the baby's head. He thinks birth will happen in the next 15 minutes. 15 minutes? I looked at Michael, who immediately confirmed our position. "Captain, we still have 25 minutes to Atlanta. The baby is going to be born during the flight. It was official. We were going to have a birth at 35,000 feet altitude." In all my fantasies about extreme situations in aviation, I never imagined I would witness the birth of a human life inside a Boeing 737 cockpit. "Jennifer," I said through the intercom, "inform Dr. Johnson that the baby will probably be born during flight. Ask if he needs anything specific we can provide." "Anything at all." The response came a few minutes later. "The doctor says he's doing the best possible with what he has. He asked me to inform you that regardless of what happens, he'll take care of mother and baby until we reach the hospital." 30 minutes after the first emergency call, Jennifer returned to the cockpit. Her voice was emotional but controlled. "Captain, the baby was born." The silence in the cockpit was broken only by the constant sound of the CFM56 engines. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Michael and I looked at each other, knowing we had just witnessed something extraordinary. "How are mother and baby?" I asked, my voice more tense than I'd like to admit, but trying to maintain the professional calm the situation demanded. Dr. Johnson managed to deliver safely. "It's a girl," Jennifer said, and I could detect tears in her voice. "But Captain, she's not breathing properly. She's very small and blue. The doctor is attempting resuscitation, but says he needs equipment we don't have here. Her breathing is very weak and she needs supplemental oxygen." My heart raced. We knew this was a real risk with premature babies. Lungs may not be fully developed, especially in babies born at 7 months gestation. And Sarah, the mother, is stable for now, but lost a considerable amount of blood during delivery. Dr. Johnson managed to control the hemorrhaging, but she's weak and pale. She's conscious and constantly asking about the baby. Michael checked our position on GPS. "Captain, we still have 15 minutes to Atlanta. Sufficient fuel, perfect weather conditions for landing. Atlanta reporting clear skies, calm winds, unlimited visibility." It was ironic how, while facing our medical emergency, landing conditions were perfect. It seemed the universe was conspiring to help us, compensating for the weather difficulties we had faced in the first part of the flight. I communicated our updated situation to Atlanta Control. "Atlanta Tower, commercial flight updating emergency status. Birth completed. Premature newborn in critical condition with respiratory difficulties. Mother stable but with significant blood loss. Requesting absolute priority for landing." The response was immediate and reassuring. "Commercial flight situation copied. Neonatal ICU ambulance with specialized team standing by on Charlie ramp. Grady Hospital has been notified and prepared obstetric and neonatal emergency team. You have absolute priority. All other aircraft have been diverted. Jennifer," I called through the intercom, "I need you to maintain absolute calm in the cabin, but I need to know, are passengers aware of the situation? How are they reacting?" "Yes, Captain. I made an announcement explaining we had a medical emergency and that we're diverting to Atlanta. I explained that a passenger gave birth and we need urgent medical care. Passengers are being absolutely extraordinary. Many are praying for mother and baby. One lady offered her own blood pressure medication in case Sarah needed it. It's incredible how people come together in moments like this." Any passenger expressed concern or anxiety about the diversion? Only one gentleman asked about missed connections, but when I explained the situation, he immediately offered to help with whatever was needed. "Captain, I've never seen passengers so united and supportive. It's like everyone understands we're participating in something very special." During those final minutes of approach to Atlanta, I maintained constant communication with the control tower. They had cleared all airspace around the airport, giving us absolute priority. Runway lights were at maximum intensity, and emergency vehicles were already strategically positioned. "Atlanta Tower, commercial flight established on final approach. What's the status of medical team?" "Commercial flight, medical team ready and standing by. Neonatal ICU ambulance with incubator and respiratory support equipment positioned. Obstetric and neonatal team from Grady Hospital aboard ambulance." Paramedic team also on standby. The approach was one of the smoothest and most precise I had ever executed in my entire career. Every movement had to be perfect. We couldn't afford additional turbulence that might further complicate the baby's condition. I reduced speed gradually, executing a longer and more stabilized approach than normal. Michael monitored all parameters while I manually controlled the aircraft. Speed stable 145 knots, glide slope centered, localizer centered. Perfect conditions, Captain. Captain, Jennifer called when we were 5 minutes from landing, her voice loaded with emotion and hope. Dr. Johnson got the baby breathing more regularly. She's still weak and blue, but responding to resuscitation efforts. She opened her little eyes for the first time 2 minutes ago. It was at that moment I felt tears in my eyes. In 20 years of aviation, I had landed aircraft in extreme conditions, faced complex technical emergencies, saved lives by making critical decisions under pressure. But I had never experienced such intense emotion as knowing a new life was fighting to survive in our cabin. The landing in Atlanta at 2:15 a.m. was technically perfect, but emotionally the most intense of my career. I touched the runway with a smoothness I didn't know I was capable of, as if the aircraft itself understood the fragility of life we were carrying. Tower, commercial flight on the ground. Requesting taxi direct to emergency position. Commercial flight, taxi via Charlie direct to position Charlie 3. Medical team standing by. As soon as we stopped on the ramp and I shut down the engines, doors opened and the medical team quickly boarded. It was impressive to see the efficiency and professionalism of the American emergency team. Within minutes, Sarah and her daughter were being transferred to the ICU ambulance, surrounded by specialized doctors and nurses. As I watched paramedics working with professional efficiency, I realized I was holding my breath. Dr. Johnson, who had been our hero throughout the flight, accompanied the transfer, briefing the medical team in detail about all procedures he had performed at 35,000 feet altitude. Doctor, I heard the ambulance physician ask, you performed a breech delivery during flight, without anesthesia and without equipment? It was what could be done under the circumstances, Dr. Johnson responded modestly. The mother was extraordinarily brave and we had a fantastic crew helping us. I left the cockpit to closely accompany the medical transfer, seeing Sarah being placed on the stretcher, pale but conscious, holding her little daughter's hand inside the portable incubator, was one of the most emotional moments of my life. Captain, Sarah called to me as she passed by on the stretcher, her voice weak but clear. Thank you for bringing us safely. You all saved our lives. I couldn't respond. I just held her hand for an instant and said, Take care, Sarah. Your daughter is a fighter. The other passengers were extraordinary throughout the entire situation. While waiting for a connection flight to Miami that the company had quickly organized, many approached to ask about mother and baby's condition. An elderly lady who had been seated near Sarah during delivery told me, Captain, you brought us all safely home today. This little girl is going to have quite a story to tell when she grows up. She was literally born among the stars. A businessman who was going to an important meeting in Miami commented, Captain, I'm going to miss my meeting because of the delay, but I can say I witnessed something much more important than any business today. I helped bring a new life into the world. 2 hours later, when we managed to organize a new flight to Miami for the remaining passengers, we received a call from Grady Hospital. Sarah was stable and recovering well from blood loss. She had received a transfusion, and her vital signs were normalizing. Little Hope, the name she had chosen during the flight, inspired by being closer to the angels, was in the neonatal ICU, but doctors were optimistic about her development. The baby is responding well to respiratory support, the hospital doctor informed. She weighs 4 pounds, which is good weight for 7 months. Heart is strong and we haven't detected any serious complications. Born prematurely at 35,000 feet altitude, she's officially our first citizen of the skies, born in a commercial aircraft. Dr. Johnson came to say goodbye before boarding to Miami. He was visibly emotional, but satisfied. Captain, in 20 years of medicine, I never imagined I'd deliver a baby inside an airplane. Your decision to divert to Atlanta, and the calm with which you conducted the entire situation, saved 2 lives today. The way you all maintained composure and organized all support was fundamental to success. Doctor, you were the real hero, I replied. Without your medical competence, I don't know what would have happened. No, he responded, shaking his head. It was teamwork. Every person on this aircraft contributed to this miracle. From the cabin crew who organized everything, to the retired nurse who helped me, to passengers who prayed and stayed calm. It was a demonstration of humanity's best. Michael, who had been fundamental during the entire emergency, reflected on the experience as we did aircraft shutdown. "Captain, this is what we train so hard for. All those emergency simulations, all the protocols we memorized, all the hours studying flight physiology and aerospace medicine, today they really mattered. We saved lives. Michael, you were flawless. Your technical competence and calm were fundamental. I couldn't have asked for a better co-pilot to face this situation. Jennifer and her cabin crew were equally heroic. Their ability to maintain calm, organize improvised medical assistance, and reassure other passengers was exemplary. Captain, Jennifer said later, it's the magic of teamwork. Each of us did our part, and the result was a miracle. Ashley was fantastic helping the doctor. Amanda managed to keep all other passengers calm and informed. It was our finest moment as a team. A week later, I received a package in the mail. Inside was a letter from the hospital and some photos. Hope had left the ICU and was gaining weight normally. The photos showed a small but visibly healthy baby with bright and expressive eyes. Sarah had written personally, "Captain Alexander, I have no words to thank you for your courageous and competent decision. Hope is growing strong and healthy. Doctor said she's a fighter, like her mother. When she's older, I'll tell her how she was born among the stars, with an angel pilot caring for all of us. Dr. Johnson visits us regularly and always talks about how the crew's competence was crucial to success. You didn't just transport us, you saved us." 3 months later, Sarah and Hope visited our operational base in New York. Seeing that baby smiling and healthy in her mother's arms was one of the most emotional moments of my career. Hope was wearing a small pilot uniform that Sarah had bought especially for the occasion. "She loves airplanes," Sarah commented, laughing as Hope babbled, looking at aircraft parked on the ramp. "Whenever she sees a plane in the sky, she stops whatever she's doing to look. I think she remembers where she was born." "Sarah," I asked, "are you afraid to fly now, after everything that happened?" "Captain," she replied without hesitation, "after seeing the competence, care, and humanity you all demonstrated that night, I feel safer flying than driving on the highway. You proved that aviation isn't just about machines, it's about people caring for people." Dr. Johnson was also present at the visit. He had become a friend of the family and followed Hope's development. "Captain," he told me, "that night changed my perspective on teamwork. In medicine, we always work as a team, but never under such extreme circumstances and with such limited resources. Seeing how you aviation professionals adapted and supported us was inspiring. That experience fundamentally changed my perspective on what it means to be a pilot. For years, I thought our responsibility was just to operate aircraft safely and on time, but I discovered we're much more than that. We're temporary guardians of crucial moments in people's lives. We're not just aircraft operators. We're responsible for human lives on their most important journeys. Sometimes those journeys include the miracle of a new life being born. I learned that every passenger who boards our aircraft carries a story, a dream, an urgency. It could be a businessman returning home after closing an important deal, a couple going on honeymoon, someone visiting a sick relative, students fulfilling dreams of seeing other countries, and sometimes, like Sarah's case, it could be someone carrying a new life that can't wait to know the world. Aviation taught me that no matter how well trained we are, or how advanced our technology is, it's moments of humanity that really define our profession. That night over America, we weren't just a crew executing emergency procedures. We were a temporary family united by the miracle of life being born among the stars. Michael told me later that experience inspired him to study aerospace medicine more deeply. He enrolled in additional courses on in-flight medical emergencies and is now one of the most prepared pilots in our fleet for similar situations. Jennifer decided to specialize in crew training for medical emergencies. She developed a simulation program that includes in-flight birth scenarios and now trains other flight attendants across the country. Today, whenever I fly over Atlanta at night, I look at the city lights and remember Hope. She must be taking her first steps now, maybe dreaming of airplanes and the sky where she was born. And who knows, maybe one day she'll become a pilot herself, continuing the tradition of caring for human lives in the heights. Sarah sends me photos of Hope regularly. The girl is growing healthy and intelligent. In the latest photos, she was playing with a toy airplane pretending to be a pilot. She says she's going to fly when she grows up, Sarah wrote. She says she wants to take care of other people in the skies like the uncle pilot took care of her. Hope's story taught me that our profession goes far beyond technical competence. Sure, we need to know every aircraft system, master all emergency procedures, understand meteorology and navigation. But we also need to remember that we carry dreams, hopes, and sometimes miracles. Every takeoff is the beginning of a new story. Every landing is the conclusion of a journey that may have changed someone's life forever. And between takeoff and landing, we're responsible not only for passengers' physical safety, but for caring for the most important moments of their lives. If you work in aviation or have interest in the skies, always remember that our profession is one of the most human that exists. We connect people, fulfill dreams, and sometimes participate in miracles like the birth of a new life. Aviation taught me that the sky isn't just a physical space where we operate aircraft. It's a place where humanity reveals itself in its purest form, where strangers become temporary family, where professionals from different areas unite for a common goal, where the impossible becomes possible. Hope was born a citizen of the world, but also a citizen of the skies. She carries in her personal story proof that when we unite with competence and humanity, we can overcome any challenge. Her life is testimony to the best of American aviation and humanity's capacity to care for one another. Subscribe to Black Box to follow more real stories from those who live aviation every day, where each flight can transform into an extraordinary adventure. Every time I see a child looking fascinated at an airplane in the sky, I think of hope and wonder. How many other extraordinary lives began among the clouds, with only the roar of engines as soundtrack? The sky, after all, is the first home of many dreams yet to be born, and we aviation professionals are the privileged guardians of those magical moments where life happens at 35,000 feet altitude. If this story touched your heart, leave a comment sharing your most memorable flight experience. Subscribe to Black Box and hit the bell to not miss our next tales from the skies.